too, but she could ask for the interest earned, and I'm fine.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Board of Finance meeting to order. And the first order of business will be the roll call. I will do that because I have a view of everyone that's out there. Mr. Bernardi?
Here.
Mr. Chamorro? Fred's not signed on. All right, Mr. Fortin?
Present.
Mr. Kelleher? I know Jeff is out there. Yeah, he's right there. All right, Mr. Kelleher is here. Mrs. Waz is excused. Mrs. Marcotte is on.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Scranton.
Here.
Mr. Peruzzo.
Here.
And myself, Michael Doherty, chairman. All right, so next order of business is to seat an alternate in place of Mrs. Waz, who is excused. So do we have a motion to seat an alternate?
Sure, I'll make, Mr. Fortin makes a motion for Phil Perazzo to be seated in place of Mrs. Waz.
All right, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any further? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, the motion carries. So Mr. Peruzzo is seated for tonight's meeting. Okay, next order of business would be to approve the minutes from the December 14th special meeting and the December 14th regular meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
You don't have to seat somebody for Fred?
Michael.
Yeah, I just came to mind. We need to seat someone to, we got to back up here. We need to seat someone to fill Mr. Chamorro's seat. So do I have a motion? Mr. Kelleher?
Motion.
Sure, I'll move to seat Asa Scranton.
Asa.
Okay, we have a motion to seat Mr. Scranton. Do we have a second?
Well, I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Fortin seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstained? All right, hearing none. Mr. Scranton will be seated in Mr. Chamorro's place. Thank you. Now we can move on to the approval of the December 14 special meeting and regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make the motion to approve those minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can I just ask a question really quickly? This is
Yeah.
Asa.
Go ahead, Asa.
I did not get a notification as to why the prior meeting was postponed. Can you just quickly explain that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can at a very late point. I was injured, and so it was decided at that time between the town treasurer and myself that nothing that was on the agenda at that time was something that had to be taken care of
Immediately.
then. If anything had to be taken care of prior to this scheduled meeting, we could have in fact called a special meeting, but that did not arise. So that was due to my personal injury.
But everybody was notified by email. Oh,
I was
Freddie.
notified about the postponement, and I thank you for your clarification.
All right. Okay. Once again, I just want to remind everybody before you speak, if you would
Oh, Fred's here.
identify yourself so that we can make sure that we get it in the minutes. Thank you. So we have a motion made by Mr. Fortin and seconded by Mr. Bernardi to approve the minutes from the December 14 special meeting and the December 14 regular meetings. There any discussion on that?
Yeah, Mike, this Fortin here.
Go ahead,
I
Dave.
actually didn't make the motion, Phil did.
Oh,
but
okay.
I have some confusion. I believe that we may have, we have two sets of minutes that are labeled
Mhm.
for the special meeting of December 14th.
That's correct. Yes, there was a second one sent out late today, I believe it was.
Right.
An update.
Yeah,
So
And that's the one we should be going by.
yeah, so the other one has not been posted by the clerk.
right. Dave, originally, the first one that you received where item number 4, fill vacancies, there was nothing there. That's the one that was filed with the clerk. And then Amy Monahan today sent me the one that should have been filed with the clerk, but it wasn't. And I just forwarded that because that's the wording you should really use when you're correcting these minutes.
Correct. I understand that, and mistakes are made, and no big deal, but
Right.
I'm trying to think of what this motion should be, if they shouldn't be all encompassing. If we've already approved the special meeting minutes of the 14th and inadvertently filed the wrong draft, then we should be correcting that, shouldn't we? We should be requesting the town clerk replace what's currently posted with what we have here tonight.
Well, actually,
Is that
David,
actually true?
no, there
I don't
were no
think so.
minutes posted as approved because we never had the January meeting to approve them.
Okay. Then that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on this, so we didn't tangle ourselves up in something later.
Now, I hear you. But no, actually, because of the fact that the January meeting was canceled, they haven't been approved in any way. So that won't cause a problem. Whatever we approve tonight is what will be posted.
Perfect. Perfect. I have no other comments.
All right, anyone else? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the December 14 special meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Opposed? Okay. And any discussion on the December 14 regular meeting?
I have none.
Anyone? All right, hearing none.
Make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes as written. This is Asa.
Thank you. We got a second on that?
Sure.
Second.
Yeah, yeah.
Phil has seconded that. And all those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? And abstain? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Next item under the agenda is the public comment instructions. For those of you that wish to make a comment during the public comments, You can signify by raising your hand. If you're up there on the screen, you can also type in questions at any time leading up to the opening of the public comment, and we will check those when that time comes. Next order of business is going to be our audit presentation, and I believe we have Mr. Van Deventer here.
And Laura Messina
Lauren is here.
and Carolina.
And who is it?
Carolina.
Carolina?
Yep.
Okay, all from Mahoney and Sable. And so we will turn this over to them to give the budget presentation, whatever their way they want to handle questions, if they want to do them as we go along, or if you want to wait until the presentation is over. Either way, that's up to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Mike Van Deventer, and I'm a partner at Mahoney Sable, ultimately responsible for overseeing the audit work and issuing the reports on behalf of the firm. Also joining me this evening is Lauren Messina. She's a senior manager at the firm, and Carolina Swall, who is a senior associate at the firm. Both Lauren and Carolina were instrumental in executing our procedures on the audit. And again, we're happy to be here to present the results of your fiscal year 21 audit. So I know this is a little bit of a challenging time in terms of you're looking at your fiscal year 23 budget, you're operating in your fiscal year 22 budget. And again, this kind of completes your reporting requirements for your fiscal year 2021. So with that being said, I am going to share my screen and present a presentation. It'll cover the scope of work, the audit reports that were issued, again, provide some overall financial highlights, and we'll make our required communications. I will pause, I guess, periodically throughout the presentation to see if the board members have any questions, and certainly we can open it up to questions at the end of the presentation as well. So bear with me while I try to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see the presentation?
I can.
Yeah.
We have it here.
All right, perfect. I was going to try to share the whole screen, but it looks like it's just going to open up. So anyway, so as far as the scope of work, again, we did perform an audit of the town's financial statements. We performed that audit in accordance with both the auditing standards issued by the AICPA, as well as the government auditing standards issued by the Government Accountability Office. In addition, based on the level of funding that was received and expended by the town, we did also perform federal and state single audits. The federal single audit was performed in accordance with the uniform administrative requirements, and the state single audit was performed in accordance with the State Single Audit Act. In addition, we do also perform an agreed upon procedures engagement on the end of school year reports that are filed by the school district with the State of Connecticut Department of Education. In addition to those attest services, we do perform some non-audit services for the town. So again, we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, as well as the schedule of federal awards and state financial assistance. We also assist in converting your governmental fund financial statements to your government-wide financial statements. In addition, we do also assist in the preparation of non-budgetary trial balances for the school district. And that mainly relates to their education fund, grant funds, as well as the cafeteria funds. Essentially, in order for us to be independent and be able to perform those services, management is required to oversee those services and accept responsibility for them. And again, Karen Fitzpatrick in her finance director position, and then Janice Thurlow in the Board of Education business manager position, have ultimately overseen those services and accepted responsibility for them. In connection with our audit work, we do issue a number of reports. Again, the main report is the report on the financial statements. We did issue unmodified clean opinions on your financial statements. Our opinion does cover multiple statements within your financial statements. It covers your governmental activities, each of your major funds, which for the town is your general fund, the Bowen Fund, and the American Rescue Plan Fund. In addition, we issue an opinion on what's considered to be the aggregate remaining fund information, and that includes all of your special revenue, capital project, and permanent funds. So again, our opinion does provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from a material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud. In addition to the report on the financial statements, we do also issue a report on compliance and on internal control over financial reporting. So I do want to point out in this report, we do not actually express an opinion on the town's compliance with laws and regulations or on the effectiveness of the town's internal controls. During the course of performing the audit, if we do identify a material non-compliance of laws and regulations, or what we consider to be a material weakness in your internal controls, we are required to include it in this report. And again, we did not report any such matters. In connection with the federal single audit, we do issue an opinion on your compliance with your major federal programs. For fiscal year 2021, your total federal awards expended were about 1.6 million. Your major programs that were tested were the special education cluster and then the coronavirus relief funds. We did issue unmodified clean opinions on your compliance. And again, we did not report any deficiencies over your grant compliance with those programs. We do issue a similar report in connection with the state single audit. Again, for fiscal year 2021, your total state financial assistance was about 5.9 million. The majority of that does represent your education cost sharing funds, and those are not subject to the compliance audit. The portion that was subject was about 729,000. Again, your major program was the Town Aid Road funding. We did issue unmodified clean opinion on your compliance over that program. And again, no material weaknesses over grant compliance. So again, one of the main objectives of the compliance testing is to make sure that you are spending the money on eligible costs. This next section goes over your financial highlights. And again, this just gives you some overall financial highlights. Certainly, if we identified anything of significance from a financial perspective, we would communicate it in this section. In terms of your general fund, your original and final budgets did provide for the use of fund balance in the amount of about 1.1 million, and that was to balance your revenues and expenditures. Your actual change in fund balance was a decrease of 714,000. So again, you plan to use 1.1 and you only use 714,000. Your revenues were about 451,000 more than budgeted, and that was a result of favorable collections on property taxes, conveyance taxes, building permits, town clerk fees, and then also some unbudgeted LoCIP revenues. Overall, your expenditures were about 278,000 less than budgeted, of which the majority was subsequently approved to be transferred to your capital and non-recurring fund.
Mike, can I break in for a minute?
Sure. Go ahead.
Dave, you're muted.
Sorry. Can you go back to that page, auditors reports? Your page 6. Okay, let's talk about exempt and non-exempt. So fiscal year 2021, $5,980,522 expended, $729,160 is non-exempt. Can you explain that sentence a little better to me? I might be a little slow.
Sure. So, yep, the state single audit requirements are ultimately regulated by the State Single Audit Act. In the Act, it specifically identifies certain state financial assistance that is not subject to the single audit testing. So again, if you look at your schedule of state financial assistance, each grant is broken out to whether it's exempt from our testing or non-exempt. If it's non-exempt, that is included in the scope of the overall audit. Again, the majority of the exempt funding is your education cost sharing funds. So we're not required to perform any compliance testing over those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I move along? Okay, and I will pause after the financial section to the extent anyone has any questions in terms of the numbers. So this next slide goes over your governmental fund financial statements. So this includes your general fund as well as all of your special revenue and capital project funds. Your combined ending fund balances totaled about 16.6 million, which was an increase of about 2.6 million from the prior year. That 16.6 million is included in various funds, some that are restricted for specific purposes. Of the 16.6 million, the general fund reported an ending fund balance of about 3.8 million. That was a decrease of about 714,000 from the prior year. The portion that was considered to be unassigned was 3.1 million, and that represented just about 11.8% or 1.4 months of your general fund expenditures. The Bowen Fund had an ending fund balance of about 8.8 million. That was an increase of about 3.4 million from the prior year. That was really attributed to market gains on the investments. Again, that is currently donor restricted in terms of potential use. The American Rescue Plan Fund, so that was a new fund that was established during the year. Really no activity in that fund. The grant funds, the first tranche of funding that was received by the town is reflected as being unearned revenue as of June 30. But again, that did trigger a major fund presentation. And then all of the other funds of the town had a ending fund balance of about 3.9 million, which was a decrease of about 134,000 from the prior year. One of the things we do look at from an audit perspective is funds that are operating in a deficit or have an ending fund balance deficit. Again, no such deficits were identified as a result of the audit. And again, there are detailed statements in the financial statements that present each of your funds' balance sheet as well as the changes in fund balance. The last slide I'll go over from a financial perspective is just your government-wide financial statements. And again, the government-wide financial statements are prepared on a full accrual basis of accounting. So they include conversion entries to record all of your capital assets, as well as any related debt, as well as some long-term liabilities. So again, it's good to look each year to see how those long-term liabilities have changed. Overall, the town is reporting a positive unrestricted net position of about 4 million. Really, that is reflective of the low levels of long-term bonded debt. Again, your debt service represented about 1.7% of your fiscal year budgetary expenditure appropriations. Looking at your pension plans, again, the town doesn't have any single employer benefit plans. You do participate in the Connecticut Municipal Employees Retirement System. The net pension that is allocated by the state to the town totaled about 2.7 million. And that was an increase of about 323,000 from the prior year. That plan is approximately 71% funded at the state level. And again, the contributions totaled approximately 243,000 for the year. The town does report a small other post-employment benefit, and that reflects, again, retiree healthcare benefits for eligible employees of the Board of Education. The actuarial determined liability for those benefits were about 172,000. Again, the town currently funds that on a pay-as-you-go basis. It does receive 100% reimbursement on the cost share from either the employee or the state. So before I move along to our required communications, again, I know there's a lot of information in the financial statements. I'll open it up now to the board members if you have any specific questions in regards to the financial information.
Mr. Bernardi, you have any questions? Mr. Parton?
Yeah, just one quick one. The last sentence, actuarial determined liability for post-employment benefits. Can you go over that one more time?
Yep. So there are certain retirees under the state teachers retirement system. When they retire from the school district, they are eligible to participate in the school district's insurance plan. The school district does receive 100% of the cost share for those employees. However, under the accounting standards, there is an implicit benefit that is quantified, meaning that as a result of them being able to stay on the school district's insurance plan, your overall premiums are going to be higher based on the demographics of the participants. So this is a liability that is actuarially calculated. It's a significant estimate, but it does try to represent what those benefits are that is being provided to the retirees.
Thank you.
Kelleher, you have anything?
So I will add, there are towns that have significant other post-employment benefit liabilities where retirees actually get a explicit benefit, meaning the town pays 100% of their health insurance costs upon retirement. Those towns typically will set up a trust to actually fund those benefits, similar to a pension trust fund.
Hi, this is Asa. I have a question.
Go ahead.
The Bowen Fund seemed to do very well. I know it probably is invested in other vehicles, but can you clarify how, just at a high level, that fund did so well in comparison to some of the other town funds?
So across the board, most funds that are invested in the market are pension trusts and other post-employment benefit funds. Returns on investments for fiscal year 21 for those types of funds were between 20 and 30%. So really the market in general was very strong in fiscal year 21, especially at the end of June. As we all know, the market fluctuates. So certainly you can give back some of those gains. The Bowen Fund is restricted in terms of actually the types of investments that it can be invested in. So I don't know off the top of my head, but it is disclosed in the financial statements in terms of what specific investments the Bowen Fund is invested in.
Could the town have done better by investing some of its other monies in other vehicles?
No, because again, state statute does limit the investment types for general funds of the town. So again, those are typically in short-term investments.
Understood.
If I might interject just for a minute, Mike, I think last year in our audit, the Bowen Fund took a pretty serious hit.
Yeah, it's about $1 million, I think.
I think it was several million, but you're probably correct.
Yeah, so fiscal year 21 definitely picked up on some of the losses that were incurred in the prior fiscal year. But it definitely earned more than what those losses were. So again, you did have a favorable change if you were even looking over a 2-year period.
Yeah, Mike, just to answer Asa's question, those Bowen funds in the will states that they have to be in New York Exchange banks. So one of them is in BYN Mellon, who I think is under the transfer agent of JP Chase, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other two are with what they call CompuShare. We don't get to choose any of that. It's in the will, and there's still several years to go before those funds become released or matured, however you want to.
Anyone else have?
Yep.
Anyone else have any other questions? Anyone? All right, we can move on. Mike, go ahead.
All right, so this last section goes over our required communications. And again, these communications are required by our auditing standards and are really geared towards when the auditor experiences some issues that we need to communicate to those charged with governance. So I'm happy to report that we had no significant issues in performing the audit. The first item talks about our responsibility under our auditing standards. Again, although we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, they are the responsibility of management. All of the information included in the financial statements did come from the town. Again, it's our responsibility to perform our audit procedures and express an opinion on those financial statements. In terms of the plan, scope, and timing of the audit, again, no changes in the overall scope of work or timing of the work that was originally agreed upon. All reports were filed by the January 3rd, 2022 reporting deadline. I do want to point out that, as of that reporting deadline, probably about 74 municipalities, actually were able to file their reports on time. So there were a significant number of municipal audits that were on extension. And again, we were happy that we were able to get the town's audit out on time. In terms of significant audit findings, one of the things we do like to point out to the board is the implementation of any new accounting standards. Again, the town was required to implement a new GASB statement on fiduciary activities that did result in a recharacterization of performance deposits and student activities that were previously reported as agency funds. So again, these funds have always been included in the scope of the audit. They've just been presented as agency funds. As a result of the new standard and guidance, those funds have been recharacterized as governmental funds. And so again, that did increase your net position by approximately $64,000. Required to disclose any significant estimates or judgments that were utilized in preparing the financial statements. Again, significant estimates related to useful lives that are assigned to your capital assets, as well as discount rates that are utilized to determine your net pension and OPEB liabilities. Again, we did review those estimates. We did deem them to be reasonable and consistent with what other municipalities are utilizing. Happy to report there were no significant difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Everything that we requested from management was provided to us in a timely manner. We had no uncorrected misstatements. We had no disagreements with management. We did obtain a representation letter that is standard. There were no unique representations that were requested. So again, if we were relying on the representation of management to substantiate a transaction, we would communicate that to you. And again, we're not aware of any consultations with any other independent accountants. If we were, we would have to disclose that to you. So again, a lot of these things are just not applicable, but I wanted to make sure that, that we included it in our correspondence. So with that, it concludes our presentation, and we would be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I'm all set.
Mike, you're good? Bernardi? Mr. Fortin, you're all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, Mr. Kelleher?
I'm not hearing him too well.
No. All right. Mrs. Marcotte, you have any questions?
All set.
Okay, Mr. Scranton?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Perozzo?
No question.
No questions, okay. And I have no questions.
I
So,
make a motion to approve the fiscal 2021 audit presentation.
we have a motion to accept the presentation as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Bernardi seconds. We have any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike and your staff there.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work and look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, next order of business will be item number 7, old business. First item under that, item A, is update on the state. Karen, you have anything?
Right now, the only thing I have to report is at the end of January, we did receive our second installment from the education cost share grant, which was a little over 1.2 million. So that's on schedule. I know sometime, I believe over the next week, the governor should be presenting fiscal year 23 budget totals, which will, help us with our revenues. I haven't seen anything yet. As of today, I really don't have anything else from the state at this time, other than we're in the middle of an audit with the state. Anybody, any municipality throughout Connecticut that had received coronavirus relief funds last year are in the process of being audited. That's due by the middle of February. So I've just been working on that, but I don't have any other updates on the state at this time.
All right, any questions?
Just one
Dave,
quick one, Karen. What was that amount for the ECS second installment?
I didn't write the whole thing down, Dave. It was a little bit more than 1.2 million, but if you want to email me in the morning, I can give you the total. It's approximately the 25% that they predict that we get. So we get 25% in October, 25% in January, and then the balance comes in April. I'd like to believe it will still be the full balance that we budgeted, but I do believe they can make a change at any time if they needed to.
At this point, I think your estimate's just fine. I'm just trying to follow along.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? All right. We'll move on to the next item, which is update on the local bridge project. Karen?
So first of all, I did check with John Navarro, our highway foreman, asked him, I think the last we reported, we were still working on an easement for Peak Brook. And I think the easement has been agreed upon. It's just waiting for the signature to become, I can't think of the word, I'm sorry. Accepted, whatever, and I'm sorry. And then once that is done, then Pete Parent from CHA Engineering, formerly CME, they will be starting to file the permits with the state. So that seems to be coming right along. Back in January and December, myself, Mike, and Jay were in the process of discussing going out to bond. And we had started the process until we realized that the first payment would be in the upcoming fiscal year 23, which is already a tough budget. And it would have taken a good portion of funding. So we decided to postpone that until after July. So that way, when we do go to bond in July, the first payment is in within 1 year, and that'll be in fiscal year 24, not fiscal year 23. So the rates seem to be holding pretty low. Hopefully that will be the case come July. But we did decide also that the best for the town would be to go to a straight bond, not do any bond anticipation notes. It will cost, every time you roll over a band, it's another fee for the financial providers, the interest, and also for the attorneys. So to save on those additional costs, we're going to go for a straight bond. When it does go to bid, we'll be looking for 10 and 15-year terms with no prepay penalty. Because it's such a significant amount, they are willing to go over 15, but not more than that. So 20 years may not be an option. And the other thing I just wanted to point out, since the town no longer has any public bonds, we no longer have our Moody's rating. So having no debt is not always good either, but in the proposals for a financial terms, we're going to just make it note that we've always remained a AAA over the last several years when we did have public bonds. So that should help us with bonding rates at that time. So that's really all I have right now on the bridges.
Okay, any questions on that? Anyone? No? All right, we'll move on to the update on the American Rescue Plan Act.
I'm gonna let Jay start on this one.
All right,
And-
Jay, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is phase one. It was proposed projects and it was revised January 20th. It was approved by the Board of Selectmen, Karen Fitzpatrick and Mike Doherty, representing the Finance Director and the Board of Finance Chair. As I've mentioned previously, we were looking at updating emergency procedures, equipment, et cetera, for the town of Woodstock. Anyway, what we approved is, number one, updating emergency communications. There's 5 base stations, Muddy Brook, Bungay, Woodstock Volunteer Fire, Town Hall, and Highway and Constables. Base stations would be in the 3 fire departments, Town Hall and a Highway. Mobile and portable radios, including all the apparatus, would be provided to the staff of those sites plus the constables. And this would include parts, labor, and programming. And that's approximately $500,000. We're going to be purchasing 12 Scott air packs. And this is specifically for Bungay, so that they would be compliant with the other 2 departments in town. So that if you're on site and you need an extra bottle, you can take it from any of the pieces of equipment are there. That'd be $108,000. Tree removal, we have $120,000. Any of you have noticed in the last couple of weeks that down at the on Roseland Park at the golf course, there's been various companies parked there overnight that do tree removal. And as you drive around town, you've seen companies doing tree removal. Again, this has been a problem for years. Not to pick on Eversource, but when they do tree removal, they only do it on the side of the road where their lines are. The problem is we have trees that are dead or dying on the other side of the road. So we're trying to address that. Number 4 on the list is the HVAC system here at the town hall. Some of the heat pumps in the ceiling are the originals. So I think the tax collector's office, it's one of the originals. So we've ordered 13 custom built ceiling water source heat pumps. They don't make them anymore, so they have to be built ahead of time. So we've ordered 13. And the price of $95,000 includes parts and labor installation. We also have $125,000 slated for Lebanon Hill Road. It's in a state of disrepair, if you will. What the plan is to put cold in-place recycled materials and overlay with hot asphalt. Number 6, Muddy Brook Fire Department. Heavy rescue equipment. This is the high pressure airbags, which it's carried by Muddy Brook and stored there, but it's used by all 3 departments. This is the type of thing of, in case of an accident with a motor vehicle or heavy equipment, you can put one of these bags underneath and under high pressure, lift the material up. It needs to be replaced, and that's $42,000. Town administrative costs, and that's basically $75,000 to administer these ARPA funds. And this is for extra staff, extra hours specific to the ARPA program. Materials and supplies, $20,000. So the total proposed obligations for phase 1 is $1,085,000. And that's respectfully submitted by myself, Finance Director Karen Fitzpatrick, in conjunction with the Board of Finance Chair, Mike Doherty. Any questions about phase 1 of of the ARPA.
Jay, I have some questions. This is Asa.
Yeah,
How much money is the town expecting to get in total?
in total,
A little over 2.3 million.
it's about 2.3 million. What we've allocated of this 1,085,000 is half. And that's why we're calling it phase one. Phase two, we're going to deal with next year.
Okay. Updating emergency communications, that's $500,000. I mean, that's almost half of phase one. I do anticipate that you have multiple bids for these communication components.
We've talked to multiple companies. This seemed to be the one that meets our needs. It may not be the cheapest. I mean, I can't tell you that, but it meets the needs of this town. And as far as communication with the various, the town garage, the 3 fire departments and the constables, we want to have communication between all of those sites. The particular thing that we're looking at now, this system, would enable you, if you are at the site of an emergency with a fire department, you could contact any other fire department or get back to Quinnebog Valley Dispatch. If you were a constable working a job and you had a problem where you needed the state police, you could switch channels and get directly to the state police. So it's specific to the needs of this town. And the other thing that I have to keep explaining to people is in the area of Woodstock, we're the second largest town in the state of Connecticut. So that puts a little bit of a strain on what our needs are, especially when you get into communication.
Understood. It's just a big chunk of money for, what everybody has now is a cell phone in their pocket. And I know you're talking about something more complicated and more powerful than that. And it's really important. Communication is key to everything.
Asa, the only thing I will mention about that is, as well as I do, there are dead zones in Woodstock.
Yep.
So, I mean, you obviously wouldn't be driving, and I never drive and use my cell phone, but there are areas that if I were to do that, I would have to tell people, I'm going to have to call you when I get home because I'm entering a zone, I'm going to lose you.
Absolutely.
This emergency equipment, communications, it's over and above the cell phones, so that no matter where you are, one of these some years ago, our Dick Barron, our fire marshal, was out, I believe in Enfield, and was talking to somebody in Woodstock using this type of communication. And it was like he was standing next to him. And that was one of the sell points, if you will, on why we went with this type of system.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Well,
I have a couple of other comments.
Sure.
Number 5, the reconstruction of Lebanon Hill Road seems to kind of fall outside of what these funds really should be used for.
No, it's not.
Well,
okay. Well, maybe it's not, but
I'm gonna turn you over to Karen, if you will.
Okay, but it just seems like more of a town road project.
So what I would like to explain is that on January 6th, the US Treasury has now approved the final rule. And as part of the final rule, we have a choice to use what they call revenue loss recovery. We've had that calculation for quite some time now, which means out of the 2.3 million that we're getting, 1.7 was already considered revenue loss based on the calculation from the interim final rule. Those funds can be used on all government services as long as they're in compliance, and road construction is a compliant purchase, or I should say expenditure. However, that being said, with the new rule that came out on January 6th, the federal government is giving towns the choice to either continue a calculation or use the standard allowance, which is up to 10 million. And at the January 20th Board of Selectmen meeting, our board chose to elect the standard allowance. of funds up to 10 million to use on government services. And that letter was sent to the Board of Finance chairman shortly after that meeting with that election. So therefore, the town plans on using the funds under the recovery of revenue loss for government services.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious because it seemed like that kind of a cost should be accommodated within other budgets and other monies, which the town probably doesn't have.
It will be a combination because the cost of Lebanon Hill Road will be more than that, but this will help defer the cost from our budget. So we can move forward with getting that done.
Okay, just another quick question. I did see a proposal to provide, or a request to provide some monies, small monies to the Quasit School repairs. How was that addressed and was there a reply?
So we have been receiving several emails and proposals based, on what we had been doing since last August. We created the website, the email address for people. So each month at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, when we discuss ARPA, I present all the updated information that's come in, and we address, as soon as the emails come in, I personally address those. And then I talk to the Board of Selectmen at their meetings. We have a list on the website of all the suggestions or proposals that people that have been coming in. So we have talked about what projects or what funding we wanted to use. And in phase one, the board has chosen to go with public safety and do these particular projects at this time. And then when we're ready for phase two, and the reason we're doing it in 2 phases is because we don't have the funding yet for phase two, because it won't be here till sometime in June. So we didn't want to allocate more than we actually physically received. So all other proposals and suggestions that have come in and still come in will be looked at and taken into consideration for phase two.
Thank you for that response, and that makes sense. Just a couple of other quick questions. Can you provide a little bit more clarity on the town administrative costs of $75,000?
Yep, I can do that as well. So under the interim and final rule, we can use funding for administration costs, consulting, reporting, and that type of stuff. So those funds are for either independent people we need to hire to help administer this program, or for the employees in-house that are doing the work to administer this, such as our bookkeeper, myself, our office manager, even constables, like when the constables are distributing masks and things of that nature, when we have distributions, that's related to COVID. So therefore we're paying them out of ARPA funds instead of our budget. So it's extra above and beyond your budget to pay people for their extra hours. The team here in Woodstock, between myself and Crystal and Diane Converse, our bookkeeper, Jay, we are administering the program instead of hiring somebody, because we're the ones over the last year that have been doing all the research and the preparation and the work. And where the bookkeeper comes in, now we're in the process of allocating the funds so that these projects can start getting underway. There's extra bookkeeping involved, payroll involved. So basically those are just, it's not that somebody's getting 75,000, it's just what we allocated for this phase, because depending on like our bookkeeper, she could have 2 extra hours a week, or she could have 5 extra hours, depending on how much involvement she has. For Crystal and myself, this has become more than, I would say, or almost 50% of our job. We're putting in a lot of extra hours during our regular work week, and extra time for meetings and things of that nature. So we're getting salary extra for this project through the ARPA funding, and it does not affect the budget.
Thank you for that response, and I do appreciate your clarifications, and that makes a lot of sense.
You're welcome.
Similarly, materials and supplies, I'm sure that the response is the same thing. The town of Woodstock is
I'll elaborate a little
masks
bit. I can elaborate a little bit. For instance, that was something that the Board of Selectmen had talked about at their meeting because it was not in maybe the original one that we presented on the 6th. And it was really just in case of, to be honest with you. For instance, if due to COVID was really high in January, it's still, it's coming down, but we thought about, what if the highway department, and we had several people out sick and we had a storm and we had to hire people to plow, or if equipment broke and, things of that nature. What we also did is we implemented COVID testing for town employees. We have a small agreement with the Woodstock Clinic here, who, if it's a town employee and they have symptoms, we can send them there to get COVID tested. We get the results within 15 minutes versus waiting days, because we have a town to run and we can't afford to have people out. So this gives us quicker results so we can have more time to prepare in the event people are out being sick. It could be spending money on extra masks and testing kits to give out to the public if they're needed. So there really isn't anything in particular. It's for the in case contingency.
Yeah.
And all of this funding doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. For instance, we allocated $500,000 for the radios, but it could be a little bit less. If it is, we can, put that money and repurpose it towards phase 2 or to other things. So these costs in this proposal are based on what we have received for proposals and things of that nature.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any more questions.
David? You're muted, Dave.
Sorry about that. Item 3, tree removal. Is this in place of or in addition to the CNR funds already allocated for this purpose?
It's all in addition.
Okay. So on item 4, the town hall high back upgrade, I believe we also have money in CNR, or we've allocated monies towards that.
Yep, there's about 17,000 in there. And that we did not want to put towards this project because this is for the newer systems to be built that are going to be installed. We still have we do budget, I think it's like $2,600 a year for the maintenance agreement, which they come out twice a year for inspection and cleaning. But we still have other units. For instance, in the finance office, that one was replaced, I think in 2018. If it breaks down and needs a part or things of that nature, that just has the extra funding there. And I'm still a little bit worried about other things that could come down the road. So this is only updating. It's not updating all the pipes in the system or anything like that. It's just updating the units in the ceiling.
Okay. All right. And the money's not tied to revenue. So all these monies in phase 1 are tied to a decrease in revenue. Is that true?
Okay. No. So basically how this works is the funding is a separate account. As the auditors were explaining, it's now considered a major fund, but it's a special revenue fund. It's not part of the general fund. And it's not considered revenue to the town because these are tied with expenditures. So in other words, if you don't spend the money, you will have to give it back to the US Treasury. Towns had the option of opting out to not even receive the funds. So what we're doing is we have set up a separate account. We've set up a separate bank account because we are allowed to collect interest on those funds. And these funds will be used for government services. We are able to transfer it to if we wanted to allocate funds down the road, if they decided to do something for small businesses, whatever they decide to do, that's what this money is for. But no, it's not revenue to the town. It
No,
doesn't,
but I'm sorry. I may have
I
confused
might be
you.
maybe misunderstanding you.
Yeah, well, one of us could be misunderstood. It's probably me, Karen. So let me
It
ask.
could be me.
So originally, as part of this American Rescue Plan Act, huh? What's that?
I'm just, I said it
So-
could be me. I'm a little tired. It's been a long day.
I hear you. I hear you. So originally, as part of the American Rescue Plan, some monies were tied to what was considered to be a decrease in revenue due to COVID. And
Oh,
those
okay, the
monies
revenue
can be
loss.
spent, that's right. And they could be spent on a lot more items
Yes.
than the other monies. The other monies, if you take those monies and apply them, you have to continue to fund whatever it is that you fund with it going forward for the town. So if it's a position, for
Well,
example,
basically, no. Basically, what
particular
happens,
item, maybe it's tree trimming, if you would use that money for that.
basically how it works is that you have a grant, and when the grant funding is gone, if the town can't afford to pick up where they left off, then you would have, say if you hired somebody using these funds, at the end of the grant, if the town can't afford to continue, they would have to let that person go. That's what, if I'm understanding correctly. Originally, the 2.3 million that we're getting, there was a lot of guidelines in the interim final rule. And one of the guidelines of uses was revenue loss. So basically, at the beginning, the revenue loss was considered 4.1% of the revenue that you collected in fiscal year ending June of 20.
Okay.
That came to approximately 1.7 million. That was calculated by our auditors. However, the remainder was more towards other items that it could be spent on within the interim final rule, broadband, water, sewer, you know, the different things. But then there was such a broad 152 page of things that you could use the funding on. When the final rule was approved in January, they changed some of the rules and made things a little bit easier for municipalities to spend the funds. And I believe, just by speaking to our auditor, one of the reasons why is because a lot of towns, especially that are small like us, we don't provide a lot of services that the bigger cities do. So therefore, they said, we're going to allow municipalities to take a standard allowance of up to 10 million and let you use those funds for general government services. We can still use it for other things, but now it gives us more money to spend on things. For instance, capital projects. We can use money on capital projects. We could use the money for bridges. There's a lot of things we can use it that are regular government services above and beyond our budget.
Okay. Now I understand your comment earlier about the Board of Selectmen and their vote on the $10 million ceiling.
We don't have 10 million. It's just,
I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in
It's
with the
just
fact
up to-
that they said $10 million.
right. It's only what you
the
actually
maximum.
got. It's only what you got. If other municipalities got more than 10 million, they could only use up to 10 million. We only are receiving 2.3, and that's all we can use it. We can't get it.
I understand. I meant that the change in the guidelines and how the money can be spent was changed.
It's changing.
And the threshold of that was $10 million.
Basically,
we're not getting 10 million. I understand that.
No.
Okay.
Basically, the latitude that was given under the loss has now been expanded across all of the funds that we will receive.
Right.
Correct.
And
Okay,
if
I got you.
This is supposed to make it easier. That's what the final rule tells us. It's to make this easier
It's
for
not going to
everybody.
get easier. It's federal government.
So that being said, speaking with the auditor, he would just like to see the Board of Finance approve, even though the selectmen approved it, the auditor would still like to see the Board of Finance approve it. Unfortunately, because our meeting was canceled in January, some of the items have already been issued POs so they could get the products ordered because the costs were going up. But that being said, these were things that we did talk to Mike about. He knows the situation, but we would still just like the board's approval or blessing, however you want to say it. So we can move on.
I would say that that's more what it is, because
There is
according
no-
to the way the fund directions work, they do not need our approval, but the Board of Selectmen are basically asking for our blessing, but they have the full authority to determine where the monies are going to be spent, because they are not directly town taxpayers' funds. They do not need our approval, but they would request that we give them that. So I would entertain a motion that the Board of Finance supports the current proposed expenditures under the ARPA funds project.
I will make that motion.
All right, thank you, Asa.
I would propose amending that to say phase 1.
Yes.
Yeah, phase
Phase
one,
one.
as currently proposed. Yeah, phase 1.
If that's okay, if Asa would
That's
accept.
fine,
that.
yes.
That's fine
Amended.
with me.
Okay. All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any discussion?
Quick
Anyone?
question,
Go ahead, Michael.
Michael. Well, when do you expect this to be completed, Karen? I mean, everything on that list.
Okay, so talking to Dave Elliott, who's our emergency management director, the radios itself is about a year project, if I'm not mistaken, by the time that all the installation, so they're working on that now. Tree removal, you know, John will be using that money at his discretion. The town hall HVAC, that's gonna start within the next 2 weeks. I honestly, the reconstruction of Lebanon Hill, I'm assuming that's gonna start either this spring or this fall of 2022. Muddy Brook is already in the process of ordering all the equipment. So, I mean,
Scott Air Packs also.
I'm sorry, yes, the breathing apparatus. I believe Dave Elliott was in the process because I had given him some open purchase orders to start going forward with this.
Muddy Brook.
So I would, yeah, Muddy Brook's already in the process too. So, I mean, I would say that everything has to be spent by, we have until December of 2026 to spend everything, but this phase, I would think within a year, all of this will be done. As soon as the money comes in June, the second half, that's when the Board of Selectmen and myself and Mike will get together to start working on phase 2. So altogether, though, everything has to be obligated by December of 2024, but we have until December of 2026 to spend it.
Okay, will we get updated line items as they're spent, like 500,000 for the radios?
Yeah,
You know.
so what I plan on doing is, Diane and I have been working on each individual project under this phase has a separate folder, and everything pertaining to that will be in that folder till the project is done and paid for. Every month at a Board of Selectmen meeting, I present an update of information, and I'm doing the same now for your board, for your Board of Finance. So as we progress, I will keep everybody, each month, I'll just keep giving updates like I've been doing. And then as soon as the projects are complete, or the materials have been received, we will let you all know. We'll keep up with that. Also, the other one thing I wanted to mention too, just so everybody is aware, when we give funding to somebody else, they become a sub-recipient, and then there's a lot more auditing and record keeping. So when I spoke with the auditor about how we would like to do it here, We are purchasing the equipment for the fire department, so the town owns them. So everything is being billed to us directly, referencing what department it's going to, and then we are paying through it from here for in-house record keeping and less risk management. So we're not just giving the fire department $500,000 and letting them do what they want. We're keeping it in-house. It makes it a lot easier to keep track of when they were purchased, reporting when we have to do the annual report with US Treasury. And we will also be getting audited by the state at some point too, when this is finished. So we'll have all those records here.
This will remain as an item on our Board of Finance agenda
Yep.
every month from now until the time that this is completed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And at any time, anybody can email me. Feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions as things progress.
I think it's going to be important to make sure that the public knows what the town is doing with the monies.
It has been,
Okay.
Asa,
Yeah.
everything that I'm presenting to you right now, all of this, every step, every update, every month of all the suggestions that come in has been on our website. Every single month we update it.
Sure. And I appreciate that, but I also think it's going to be important that we keep the momentum of thought going on phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
Keep soliciting public input on, projects that the townspeople think are important. And they're probably going to be a lot of the smaller projects, but some of the smaller projects are what the public sees that the town is doing to improve, the town itself and what things the town has to offer. For example, the Quasit Schoolhouse. But there are probably 100 other things that other people, 10,000 here, 20,000 there, that kind of thing.
We have so far, I think, over 40 different suggestions. We have a page dedicated on the website specifically for ARPA, for people to be able to, if you look, I don't know if Crystal's sharing the screen, if everybody can see all the documents that we've been putting to get people's input. We've had open forums. So when it comes to phase 2, we'll have another open forum again. People are still welcome to send input. We have been receiving proposals for all different things coming right along. So, and I present all that to the Board of Selectmen at their 3rd meeting of every month, and then it goes up on the website, and then I kind of recap when we do the Board of Finance.
Okay, and then back to Mike's clarification that will be shared with us on a monthly basis as decisions are made so that we can all discuss this and approve.
Yep, if you look, I don't know if everybody can see the screen, Crystal, scrolling. These are all the suggestions that have been coming in. Like I said, I update them once a month. And you're right, we've had, a lot of suggestions that have come in. I do have some other proposals that were presented at the open forum in October, and we received a couple more today. And those will be updated in 2 weeks at the Selectmen's meeting, and then it will be updated on the website again. And if I did get something from, the Quasit School, it would be on that list. I know that they have some work that needs to be done currently that was brought up to our board last week, but it wasn't ARPA funds they were requesting. I think they were requesting CNR funding, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
We had asked for additional
Information on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So does anybody have?
I just picked that as an example. It's not a pet project of mine or anything.
Oh no, I'm just trying to keep as much transparency as I can. This is a very intense grant. There's a lot to learn, a lot to do. We're trying to accommodate as many people from the public as we can, and being, informative as often as we can.
Well, my subtle point that I'm trying to make is, I think on the last referendum, I heard that there was only like a 4% turnout. And that bothers me. In a town like this, where when we talk to anybody, everybody has an opinion. And yet when it comes to going to town hall and actually pushing a button or, taking a vote, nobody can be bothered. But at the same time, everybody's grumbling about this, that, and the other thing. So whatever we can do behind the scenes, or, this is a transparent process. We're doing it with open public involvement, but we're getting very little of that. But whatever we can do to accommodate what people want, we can't please everybody, but we're doing great things, and people, I think, appreciate it, even though we don't hear it sometimes. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nothing from me.
Anyone? No one. All right. So we have a motion been seconded to give our blessing on the Selectmen's choice of expenditures for phase 1 of the ARPA funds. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions? None. Okay, motion carries.
I would assume we're going to use the word accept.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes, correct.
Please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
All right.
Accept
Next
as
item.
presented.
Next item
All right.
is E, be the general government budget update.
Do we have anything, Jay, at this time?
Nothing
No.
at this time?
No,
Okay.
nothing at this time.
All right. Then we'll go on to item 8, new business. First item is quarterly reports. You should have received your quarterly reports for the expenditures for the Board of Ed and the general government, as well as the revenue report. Does anyone have any questions on any of those?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, David.
I do, Mike Orton. First of all, thank you, Karen. You answered my question on the revenue report, which is the status of the ECS grant. But I do have one question on the general government budget, P&Z notices.
Yep,
Am I to understand that they've overspent?
that line item, yes.
Yeah.
I guess
So-
they had more notices that they needed to publish than they expected. So as long as they don't go over their budget, bottom line, they will just have to make sure that the other items in their budget, they don't spend the money on because they don't have it. This has been addressed with Jeff Gordon, the chair. It has also been addressed with our first selectman.
Okay.
We've made suggestions on things that we think we could help him with. At this time, I haven't spoken with him, but he is aware. We are aware, and we will be keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, this is not a browbeating. It's simply that, generally speaking, the board of yourself or the board of selectmen always comes to us if they need to overexpend a line and look for our.
Well, we
our
don't come
approval.
to you when we have to overexpend a line item. We come to you when we need to overexpend a budget. There's a difference because we can by statute overexpend a line item. We just can't overexpend the department's bottom line budget. That's when we come to you to ask you for funds if somebody's budget is going to go over.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. I'm just looking at and monitoring the situation. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you for your input, as always.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? No one? All right. Next item is Proposition 46. Basically, just want to let you know that for all parties involved, that the maximum that our upcoming annual budget can increase is $547,615. and that is due to the fact that we are in a reval year. So just be known that that's where we're at.
Right, and that's where paragraph number 2 in Prop 46 takes place. So we will not be calculating any exemptions. I did speak with Janice. She knows that we can't accommodate any increase in special ed or any increase in transportation. So one of the things I was going to ask is, because this number can't change, if there was any way that the board could allocate the funds between the town and the Board of Ed, so that way we can better complete our budgets before we present them to you. I don't know how you feel about that. I just think that if Janice and I both know how much of that 547,615 each of us will get to bring to the attention of the selectmen and the Board of Ed, it just may help clarify things as we're budgeting, so we don't come in higher than we need to when we present in March.
Thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Well, I think there've been traditional amounts of split that you certainly could look back on for trending.
It's
purposes.
averaged.
We have-
It's averaged around 78% for the Board of Education, 22% for general government.
I would hesitate at this point without seeing either budget to allocate funds. That's my own personal opinion.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have to agree. I don't, right at this time, I don't think it's too early in the season yet. You know, we need to see numbers.
Anyone else?
As a newbie, this is Phil. I'd have to agree. I'd want to see the numbers.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Anyone else? All right, well, I think that between the Board of Ed and the town government side, I think they can pretty much figure, they know how that usually pans out. So if in fact they work with their budgets within those frames, then there shouldn't be too much of a difference that has to be made when the time comes as far as what cuts would have to be made or whatnot, as long as they don't exceed those general parameters. All right.
Agree, and this is Asa.
Go ahead.
I know that everybody knows that we're starting to really bump our heads against this Proposition 46 ceiling, and have been for many years. I don't have the solution to that.
I don't think anyone does, to be honest with you. Not right now, anyway. It hasn't come forward, so. But there's definitely, it is an issue that needs to be addressed, and the sooner the better, one way or another. Anyone else have anything under that?
Again, being a newbie, I'm inclined to agree with your comment. It needs to be rethought. In 1979, when it came up, I was still in high school. Hard to believe. Probably time to rethink it.
Well, what that's going to take is someone has to come up with the idea and a petition. As the Proposition 46 was originally done, the process is someone's going to have to come up with a petition to make a revision or change, amendment, whatever it may be, whatever you may want to call it, and get the required number of signatures to go to a town meeting and then a referendum. And until that happens, we must live within it.
Yeah, I got to speak up here.
Go ahead, David.
I don't think this conversation belongs at the Board of Finance. You know, not at this point. It's not an agenda item. It's not a place for people to express their opinions on particular ordinances. Our responsibility is to properly fund the town within the guidelines of our ordinances, and the revenues that we generate at this point. So I'm not saying that I'm for or against anything. I'm saying it doesn't really belong here. If some wants to bring it up as a part of, you know, other from commission, you want to express their opinion, get on a stump, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But I don't think that's what we're here for, what we were elected for.
No, that wasn't
We work within it. If it doesn't
Dave?
change, we'll work.
Dave, that wasn't the reason why it was on the list. It was only on the list to on the agenda to let everybody know what the maximum was this year. And
that's not what
exactly
I'm saying.
as you said, this is not the place to discuss Prop 46 as it is, but we must live within the guidelines of Prop 46, and that's all we can do at this time.
Right. I want it on the agenda because we had business with it. You know, and Karen has prepared this report for us, and that's fine. But 3 different members of our board have started to express opinions, whether or not they're for or against it or whatever. That's what I'm saying is not part of the Board of Finance, in my opinion.
I agree, and we have gotten the information out there that was required, so we will move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item is the grand list. The grand list has not been completed.
No.
There's been an extension to February 28th.
I believe so.
February 28th for the grand list
Creation.
So we don't have that information at this time, but just wanted to let you know that that is the case. So hopefully we'll have something at our next meeting. We've got to have something soon because without the grand list and going into budget season, it's going to make it very difficult. So,
right.
Well, we don't have to worry about that until after the referendum. So, but we have up until the time of the actual town meeting to know definitely what that is, because it is imperative for the calculation of the mill rate. All right, item number 9, public comment. Do we have any public comment? Do we have anybody type any questions in or?
Megan Gardner said, I want to acknowledge the hard work done by Janice and Karen during an incredibly challenging fiscal year, and offer congratulations on Woodstock receiving a clean audit for fiscal year 2021.
All right, thank you very much, Megan.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? No one? All right. Other from the board? Anyone have anything? Everybody's had enough, I guess. All right, correspondence and announcements. Our next meeting will be March the 8th. We're expecting to get the Board of Ed's budget presentation. At that meeting, we will also review our fund balance policy. And we'll be meeting again on March 15th. That will be for the general government budget presentation. And then again on the 22nd for the combined budgets. If any of the board members have any items that they wish to have added to the upcoming agendas, please let me know and we can do that. And that is basically all I have at this time. I want to thank you all for your time. It's must be we're getting ready for budget season because this was a longer meeting than we usually have. So we're building ourselves up for this.
I make a motion for adjournment.
I thank you, sir. We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.